Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I was looking at the other screen, and well, I'll tell you what I was looking at here in a second. But let's go to the charts first. Looks like we did have that ADP number this morning, yeah. So let's pull that stuff up first. ADP employment change, they were anticipating 110 and they got 233. Oh boy. Are we gonna have another one of these super wild non-farms payroll numbers that are just absolutely bonkers? And ugh. Okay. So market here down. Well, the treasuries are down. Now, we got to talk about yesterday. So yesterday was so interesting. I kind of thought after the numbers that we had yesterday that we would have a bit of a rise and that the auction would be good. And what happened was they sold back down to the lows of the day, and then the auction hit, and then it was all up after that. So, and then we're getting hit down here. It looks like we're getting the GDP number now, 2.8% versus an expected 2.9. So that's a little bit weaker than expected, but the core PCE prices was slightly higher than expected at 2.2 versus 2.1. So we'll let them work that out, but it looks like we're going to get some more movement here. S&P 500, kind of not sure what to think of it, I guess. I mean, they're not just taking off. Oil's spiking this morning. Gold and silver. Well, so yesterday, when this started, we were like, oh, gold hasn't hit a new high yet. But they did. And man, look at them extend after they hit that. And it does look like, although they weren't able to hold it, that we did finally touch 2,800. Silver doesn't look quite as nice. Copper's still kind of just moving sideways here and actually at the lower end of its range. Japanese yen. Okay, well, maybe things have kind of slowed down and the Japanese yen just going a little bit sideways today. And Bitcoin pushing to new highs, and Bitcoin is all of a sudden looking really, really good. So I can see all the Bitcoin guys getting really excited, like, oh, 100K is around the corner. Maybe. I mean, around this time of year, they can make some pretty amazing moves. So the thing that I was looking at was that my market orders indicator disappeared again. So there's something wrong there. And I was looking at my Ninja script outputs. So the first thing is does it really, I'm really going all the way back to the 25th? But like, why is it looking in the cache every time? I'm getting that message too much. That's just there for like debugging purposes. I'll probably take it out of the final product, but like that doesn't make any sense at all. But there's no message in there anywhere in that. saying, you know, why it disappeared. So I think I might have a trick to make this happen now. Market order imbalance. Okay. All right. So first thing here is that this data series is actually, oh, it's 5 days. Okay. But then I could come in perhaps to the indicators, that market order imbalance, and say template, save. I'll call it test, save. And there is my error. Come on. There is an error reflecting type. Okay. I was hoping I was going to get a better message than that. Cancel. Okay. So, what I maybe if I have the debugger open, it'll give me a better message. I'm not a fan of doing this just because the debugger, you know, Visual Studio takes a lot of memory, right? Visual Studio takes a lot of memory. Before I get too deep into that, let's see. Oh, Uzi, good morning. A. Paul, Octavius. All right. Yeah, and what a mess. I thought the market sure looks like a mess to me. Like the treasury market was pretty slippery there for a long time, and they don't seem to be completely sure how to deal with it. Like the thing with ADP is that like it's been all over the place. So you know the market doesn't seem to know how to read it. Like if they should really like this is a big deal or not. Okay, so attach to NinjaTrader here. Get it running. And then come into the indicator again. Indicators, market order imbalance, template, save. Test, save. So there's the error message. NinjaTrader did not break. Okay. You weren't very useful, Visual Studio. Okay. I'm gonna have to figure it out from inspection. That's okay, because I do understand quite a bit about how this works. So I'm just kind of thinking like, okay, why would it just be that one? Largest resting orders. Template. Save. Test. Save. It's fine. Why is it just this one? So generally the way that it comes into like a serialization error is one of your properties. And I got this like I don't like all it has is a period, and that's basically it. This is going to take me a little while of staring at it to figure it out. Good morning, Amir. Oh, looks like the treasury market is kind of balanced back out there. Or it was at least chilled out, let's say. So I could see it being this enum I made for the file's name style. But then why would it only happen on the market order imbalance indicator and not the other ones? Oh. Oh. Detected a difference between them here. Kind of don't understand why that would make a difference. But let's just try it. Nope, not that. We'll leave it like that though, so that they're the same. Perhaps I can come into here and I can say, See if that compiles, and maybe that will allow me to... and maybe we can buy ZN based on our... Well, so... I've kind of been messing with it, so I'm not entirely sure, but it does look like that there's a buy side imbalance after this, so... I think I need to add using system.io. When you have issues with the serialization in NinjaTrader, those are like some of the worst because it can be hard to test it. So what I've done here is I've put somewhere inside of my indicator something to specifically try and export it or try and serialize it to see if I'm doing it explicitly, if that makes it happen. So we'll attach here. Me refreshing this chart should cause it to break. Ha. Does. View details. Inner exception. Cannot initialize session iterator? Oh. Oh, hold on.
Connection lost.
That's what I should have guessed. I should have guessed. So over here, this one has a session iterator too, though, but it's a private one, yes. It was because I not thinking I have a session iterator in that class, and I made it a public session iterator. Excuse me. I'm having like heartburn issues this morning. Okay. F5. Access to the path is denied. That's okay. That means it worked. Now, I'm going to try this one more time. I'm going to remove it. Market order imbalance. Period 30. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'll delete today's data. add it to the chart. Okay. And then if I do something that should reflect it, like try to save a template, save, it's fine. Cool. And then that means that I can also, so I make this one 30-minute one and default, and I'll make this one 10-minute one, and it will use the full. Very good. Okay. Like, I kind of suspected that something was wrong yesterday, but I was like, maybe it will go away. And I kind of wish that I just dealt with it yesterday. But I think that fixes it. Let's see here. Do I have anything else weird open here? Got a couple of emails and stuff to deal with. I'll do that after the stream, though. Don't email me after business hours, guys. You just will get a later reply. I feel like there was something else over here that I was... Okay, well, we don't need that over here, so let's move that. There we go. So, my news squawk is saying a bunch of stuff about what the UK finance minister is saying, but it doesn't look like it's really affecting anything that we're looking at, so... And I guess that means, let's poke around a little bit. I mean, there's some political stories we can talk about, but let's see what we got here. And we can talk about human garbage in a second. AI boom puts pressure on America's water supply because large data centers consume so much water. Really? Personal consumption soared as inflation slowed. October surprise ADP employment reports. You know what? The way that Zero Hedge says this is a Six Sigma beat is kind of stupid. I've realized. Here's what they do: is when they say it's a Six Sigma beat, you probably think, oh, okay. So they look at what the median estimate was and what the actual number was and the difference between that. And then they look at every number that, every time that this number has ever come out. And then they say, how big of a beat is this compared to all other times that this economic number has ever come out? And then they say it was Six Sigma beat. That's like, oh, it's like so far outside of the expectations. This is beating bigger than it has ever before. No, that's not what's happening. That's wrong. What they're doing is they're looking at the estimates for the actual number and then saying, if you do the statistical analysis of the different estimates from the analysts, if you look at the different analyst estimates, this is, what is the sigma relative to the analyst estimates for that one release. And so when they say that it's a Six Sigma beat, it's really not telling you anything about how big of a beat it is historically speaking for that particular indicator. It's how big of a beat is it relative to the consensus expectations, which are often dead wrong. And so every time that they say that this is a Six Sigma beat, they're misleading people, I think. what I would like to see is an actual, analysis of the past things. I think that if you were to look at ADP like if you were to look at ADP in particular, I think that you would find that this is a number that like beats or disappoints the analyst's expectations by a wide margin extremely often. So it's probably not that huge of a deal. Well, I don't know. Anyways, this just really irks me. You should know, because you're trading and you read that and you're like, oh, this is a big deal. No, it's not. This bullshit. Too much Harris hate priced in by markets, asks Zero Hedge. It might be. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird to be saying this, but it seems to me that the market is a little bit too certain about what's going to happen for the election. Like what I see is a race that's extremely close, but every metric that I can look at is saying that Donald Trump's going to win. So I feel so there's kind of this thing that is like, okay, you have a prediction. How sure are you about that prediction? Well, I'm about as sure as you can be. Right? Like there's this bit here that's like, okay, the information that we have is all very conclusively coming down in one direction. But we also know that our ability to predict the outcome of the elections based on the information that we have is very limited because it is still so close. So there's still a large amount of uncertainty off of that. And, like if it comes out and Hillary wins, or Hillary, if Kamala wins, I will be surprised. But, when people say, oh, you were wrong, well, I would say, well, but I kind of tried to warn you that our ability to predict these things is limited. Okay, like, I'm not going to go. I think some people try to avoid responsibility completely by saying I just don't make predictions. I'm making a prediction. My prediction is that Donald Trump will win. Okay, but I'm putting the caveat on that our ability to predict this is limited. Okay, but the market's not saying that. The market is pretty much convinced that there's like a 80% chance that Donald Trump is going to win, and I don't think it's that much. And so that it probably is the case that a Harris win is underpriced. Like Uzi is convinced that Harris is going to win. You should probably, place some bets. Should probably place some bets because you'd probably have an outsized win if she won. It's not going to make much of a difference. Well, so for the markets, I do kind of think that the market is like way overestimating or exaggerating how big of a deal it is. Like this is, again, another issue where people think that the market is efficient. And so if the market makes a move in a certain direction, that means that, there's going to be more inflation, or, it means something about the fundamental, what the fundamentals are going to be if Donald Trump is president. But that's not actually how the market works. The way that the market works is people buy and people sell, and that moves it. And this is one of those flows that like you can't price it in. It just continues to come. And so, for instance, some people might say, oh, well, a Donald Trump win is already priced in. So if Donald Trump does win on election night, we shouldn't really see a whole lot of movement from the markets, right? Wrong. You can't price it in. There's volume that will come no matter what. There's volume that will come no matter what, and it will move the market, right? And so we can't look at the prices that we have right now as any kind of indication of what the future fundamentals are going to be or anything like that. And so we have to look at those differently if we really want to analyze that part and kind of take a more of a longer term trade. And when I kind of take a longer term trade, I'm not too sure that the Donald Trump being elected is as big of a deal for the markets as people are making it out to be. He's made a lot of promises. Yeah, he's made a lot of promises. But Donald Trump's ability to actually follow through on his claimed agenda is actually quite limited. Okay, he cannot impose across the board tariffs. He can do targeted tariffs, but he's not going to have the, and that's only like if it's a national security concern. But he's not going to have the support in Congress to do any kind of tariffs. So his ability to do anything on that is going to be limited. He can prosecute a trade war with China is what it will be. And I'm hoping that this time around that China is kind of like, well, let's just make a deal and not go through all of this drama again. We'll see. It's been bad for a while. They could probably use the boost. There's talked about things like taxes. Probably not going to happen. And if it did happen, if the Republicans were able to come in and push it through another tax bill, it probably look very, very different from what he's claiming. Like, I don't, not convinced, rather, that they will do all of these, like, what do you say? No taxes on tips, for instance. That would be really hard to get into a bill, I live in a liberal city, and last night I got an email that my ballot was rejected for my signature. Wow. I'm seeing a lot of stories on social media in Pennsylvania that they're like closing the lines down early and doing these things, preventing people from voting. So I'm going to be going out first thing in the morning. That's my thing is I like to vote on election day. It looks like I put dislike on this stream. I don't agree. Okay. It is. I've had some places where it was like I went to vote and it took a really long time. So I really like to vote on election day, but I go first thing in the morning. It's going to be interesting because Republicans are outperforming big time. But if you actually look at the numbers from the early vote, like they're outperforming, but it's just like they're outperforming relative to the past. Like in most places, Democrats still outpace Republicans in terms of early voting. And that amount of Republicans that are voting early are, is probably going to cannibalize the election day outcome. So I don't think that you can really use the early vote tallies to really say a whole lot, other than that it seems to be in line with the polling. I don't know. Like the issue that you got here, guys. Verex, we have to have this discussion again. Okay. So here's the thing. Where's my pen? In the United States, there are essentially 300,000 people. Okay. How come all this and I don't know how to spell people? Okay. Let's say that our election systems are 99% reliable. Okay. What is that? What is 1% of 300,000? Well, it's going to be 1,000. Or sorry, 300, not 300,000, 300 million. What's 1% of 300 million? Right? It's like 100,000, right? $300 million times 0.01. Oh, I'm sorry. Is 3 million. Durr. I'm so stupid. Just need to take that off. Okay, yeah. I shouldn't even need a calculator for that, right? $345 now. Yeah, but I'm going to use 300,000 because it's easier to say, okay? So if we're 99% reliable, that means, let's just do 300 million. Okay. So if we're 99% reliable, that means there's going to be 1 million errors. If our election systems, and when I say reliable, I mean like the voting system tabulates your vote correctly, and there's not any shenanigans by local officials or anything like that to somehow invalidate or screw up your vote. Okay. If we say that we're 99% reliable, that means that you have 1 million errors. Okay. So what if we were 99.9%, right? That would still be 100,000. Okay. And then it just goes down. Every time that we add a 9.99, that's still 10,000 errors. Right? And here's the issue, is that every time that you add a 9 on this, so like to me, 99.999% effective, that would mean only 1,000 errors in the election system. Okay. That would be acceptable. That would be acceptable, yeah? Two things about that, though. There's still a problem with that. Number one, it's really hard to get to this number. Okay? Like, just getting everything to that point, that's so hard. Each decibel that you add on top of that is orders of magnitude more effort, right? It's like it like here's your, if this is accuracy and here is effort, right? It goes like that. Okay. The every time that you add a 9 on there, it's exponentially more effort to get. So number one, it's actually very, very hard to get to 99.999% accuracy. And there seems to be all of this effort out there to kind of prevent us from putting in that much effort. Okay, number one. Number two, there's still going to be 1,000 errors, which means that when you go on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're looking, you're still going to see stories about people having an issue. Right? So just prepare yourselves you're going to see a lot of stuff on election day. Shenanigans, etc., etc. Doesn't necessarily mean that the elections are being stolen. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be concerned. But the issue that and this is issue number 3, is that how do I get what is this, right? For us to really do an analysis of it, we have to say, you know, how accurate was the election, right? And we're not going to be able to tell that from all of the information that we're getting from news media, right? I think independents are always a problem, really. We just made politics so dumb we think there's something deeper. Yeah. Like, there's this thing that, like, independents are largely coming out Republican. And it kind of turns into a lot of independents actually are Republicans that just still want to think that they're not political. And or that, you know, they don't really worry or care about those things. Yeah. And whereas the liberals are not like that. Like, all liberals are fairly engaged now at this point. And yeah. Another issue, by the way. So I saw this really interesting thing where it was like they looked at the vote. I wish I could. I think it was like on CNN. They were looking at the vote, and they saw that, like, in Michigan, that, like, in 2016, that Donald Trump got like 48.3% of the vote or something like that in 2016, right? And then in 2020, he got like 47.5% of the vote or something like that, and lost. And when you look at the difference between those two, what it actually comes down to is that difference between that, like, 1 point difference, or not even 1 point, that's 8.8% difference, basically comes down to the number of people that voted for a third party candidate. That's why Democrats are fighting so hard to try and keep Jill Stein off of the ballot, keep Kennedy, RFK rather, keep RFK on the ballot. because in some of these states the margin is so thin that it really does basically come down to how many people vote third party. That's also why when you go on Reddit, like, a lot of the posts are, okay, but when you're living under a fascist dictatorship, how are you going to feel about your vote for Jill Stein then, and all that sort of nonsense. It's crazy how close it is in some of these places. But again, that's where I also come back to, like, it seems to me that if Donald Trump does win, that he will, like, run away with it. My 2s need to look more like a 2. There we go. Okay. 007, you asked a question. Oh, you're going to ask it again. That's cool. Okay. After our discussion, I went ahead and purchased your indicators. I also sent... Yes. Oh yeah, you missed me. You missed me earlier when I said don't send me emails after business hours, because basically what happens is then I wait until after the stream to go and answer them. But I was a little bit unsure about how to respond to your question because I wasn't 100% sure. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I had to call and mute your action. No. This was like at the beginning of the stream. I'm not 100% sure I understand what you're asking here that we didn't answer when you asked the other day. So now that you have the indicator suite, what you do is this. You add your indicators to the chart. Make sure that you really have the parameters that you want. And then just keep your chart open. And as long as the chart is open, it will export the data. And it writes it to a file. And so then what you get is then you go to Documents, NinjaTrader 8, Saved, and you'll have these CSV files in here. And if I can open up yesterday's, for instance, you can open them up in Excel or you can open them up in a text editor. And then it will basically say, okay, for every minute, this is what the value of the indicator was, right? Yep, exactly. But to filter it good, just the tips and tricks, don't want to put all the data and later be like, oh no, yeah. So this like calculates the AND values, but the issue is that it doesn't save the data that it was generated from. So if you want to change the algorithm or change the parameters that you're filtering by and things like that, you can't reconstruct it, right? And that's where I have another indicator that I will include in the next version of the indicator suite called the data pipe, which I do have on this one over here. I was looking to see if I had it over there. How come this one's not showing me the spread? I got a couple of issues here to look at. Anyways, the data pipe outputs everything. So if I come in here, it should be on here from yesterday. Oh, does it go into... So that was one of the first things, is that the data pipe still goes to the old folder. Yeah, here it is. We don't need those anymore. Here it is, data pipe. Oh, let's not open up today's though. Let's open up yesterday's. And let's just open it up in a text editor. Okay. So now it basically says, here's the time, here's the instrument, what type of is it a bid or an ask? Is it an update? Right? These are all updates. And then if it's actual volume, there are other fields that get filled in instead. Last. It says last, and then this is like the volume that traded. Okay. Now you have all of the end data to like reconstruct it. So one of the things that I'm kind of working on, or like a future plan, let's say, is things that will, like Python scripts that will generate these things from this instead. But the basic gist is, if you have the data pipe, you are saving all of the information so that you can generate these later if you need to. But like, that's kind of one of the things about data science, is that you kind of want to have a data pipeline eventually, right? So you get this thing that's like, okay, it spits out. So this is data pipe, right? It will spit out the raw. Okay. And then there's going to be some Python script that is like computed, right? Then you might also pass it into like machine learning right here or something like that. There might be some other transformation for here first, and then you pass it to the machine learning. But basically, you get this kind of pipeline, and the mistake that I think a naive data science person would make, is they would just say, okay, I got the raw, and then I'm going to do this and this and this and this, and then just get the machine learning output. And the issue that you have with that is that all of this stuff takes a really effing long time because there's a lot of data to process. And so what you should do is at each step, you should save the result, right? So now, if I want to do the machine learning part, like I changed the machine learning part, it's already been computed and transformed for me, and I've saved that out somewhere. And so I just have to take this and pass it into the machine learning. That makes sense. Okay. But we don't have all of that. We're just saving the raw data so that in a future time, if we really want to do that part, we can do that part. And the data pipe in particular kind of, it gets it outside of NinjaTrader, so it puts it in a place where you can mess with it a little bit better, right? But if you want to do back testing on order flow stuff, then the best thing to do is to just add the indicators to the chart and start saving the data now, and then in a few months you can do a back test. Okay, so I'm noticing that my market order imbalance hasn't actually drawn a bar for some reason. So did I insert? I did. No, I didn't. Wait, what? That's a little weird. That's weird. That's really weird, actually. We should tag evens today looking for longs. Well, it's looking pretty good so far. That's for sure. Oh, actually, you know what it is? I know why we're having a problem. After doing all of that debugging and everything, I never reconnected. There's some other issue that I'm going to need to look into later today, though. That it seems like some of the indicators are trying to grab the cash too often. Okay. I'm going to code a quick thing that maps the delta percentage from volumetric bar data as a histogram. So, like, the amount of volume that has traded at a particular price and chart it as a histogram. Wait, I don't understand that at all. But anyways, to 007's question. So the answer to your question is, wait another week. We're still doing a little bit of testing and debugging, and then you will have the thing that really outputs the raw data. I've kind of been reluctant to give you guys the thing that outputs the raw data because, you know, I'm afraid that I'm like going to have to support the after stuff, right? Well, I'm just going to have to answer the question that like you do with the data what you do after that. You know, I don't necessarily have stuff to do stuff with the data pipe afterwards, right? But it has become a relevant thing, so it will be in the next version. Oh, the delta percentage. I gotcha. And do it as a histogram. So like, would you want it as a histogram? Like, well, how would you do that? Or would you just have it as the delta percentage for that particular? It would be like a volume profile, but it's like a delta volume profile. Yeah, because if you just put it on a regular candlestick chart, how would you make it a histogram? Unless you're just talking about, okay, so maybe you're just saying for this bar, what was the delta difference? Isn't there something for that already though? Like isn't that just... So like, how do I do this? New chart. Oh, actually, you know what? There's not. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. So I can make a chart like, I'll show you how I was thinking. So you can come into here and I can have like an indicator like, let's use Sim22's delta, right? And instead of saying cumulative delta, I just click that and click OK. Oh, let's change this to a tick replay chart. Right. And this tells me the amount of volume that was different. And you're basically saying, I want it to be expressed as a percent of the total volume. Like, what is the delta difference as a percentage of the volume? Yeah. Oh, I can't open a volumetric bar chart because I'm using the free version of it, right? I have the license, but it doesn't work with rhythmic data, so I don't use that. So I don't have the volumetric bars. So you know what, by the way, I was watching my video yesterday and I was like, Seth, you need to read the comments out better because you'll just respond to what people are saying. And like somebody that's listening and isn't watching chat might have no clue what I'm saying. Oh, go into properties, show bar statistics, and just select delta percentage. Oh, okay. So what is that delta percentage? No. Okay, so I know what you're talking about now. Well, I mean, I don't ever remember looking at that, but I can see where you're going. But the question is, what does that actually tell me? So let's go to NinjaTrader's documentation. Get delta. Oh, so it looks like that they have new indicator methods to get the information from the volumetric bars now. So that's cool. Okay, so all you would have to do is just say, here you do. You would just add a volumetric data series to the chart in your indicator, and then from that series say get delta percent, and chart it, the histogram. Yep. Yeah, that is what you said a couple of comments before. Just add a volumetric data. Oh yeah, bar data. See, I didn't understand that you can. There's a specific method for adding a volumetric bar series, and then just call the delta value from it, and that there's a method to call it. But yes, but that still doesn't tell me what it is. We could, if I had the ability to open it up, we could probably from inspection determine what it is. I'm guessing that it's like, what percent of the difference is it of the total volume? Is my guess. Is you've got like, it's buys minus sells over buys plus sell. That's my guess of what it is. Yeah, if volume is 100 of the bar and delta is plus 500, then the value would return 50%. But that would have to be like, if it's 1,000, it would have to be like the buys is 250 and the sells are 750, right? And then the difference between these is 500 and the total is 1,000, and then you get 50%, right? No, I probably said something stupid, but I understood that you said 1,000. If the volume is 1,000 and the delta is plus 500, then the value would return 50%, yes. So in order for that to happen, the buys would have to be, it's actually the absolute value of buys minus sells, but still. That way, if the sells is bigger, it still comes out to a positive number, but unless it does do it by negatives. Does delta volume return a negative value to you ever? It does return a negative value. Okay, so it's not the absolute value. That's got to be what it's telling you. Oh, you sent me a screenshot of it, says Uzi. Let's see. Let's look at what it looks like. Oh, well, but just on a volumetric chart. So what is, oh, that's this data series down here. I see. And because it's on this data series down here, it gives you a percentage number and it colors it, but that doesn't really, it's kind of hard for you to analyze it that way. Yeah. Well, let's just do it. Let's just make our own without using volumetric bars. That would be fun. I'm kind of, you've got me interested enough now. Ayo, are you using order flow? Yes, of course we're using order flow. Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. We're going to make a new editor here. And I'm going to open one up off screen just for me to kind of refer to other indicators that I have. How should I do this? Which should I use as a reference? Maybe I can use this one. Okay, so we're gonna make a new indicator. I'll make it in this alphabet. We'll say delta percent generate. And then we say something like this. Yeah, on market data. Okay, protected override void on market data event args e is the existing method that you can overwrite, and then we can say if state. Well, we don't necessarily let's make it so that it works on all times. So sometimes I will make it so that it only does it on real time, but I digress. If e dot market data type is last, not last. So by the way, look at the different options there. There's like bid, ask, daily high, daily low. So these are kind of like for different data platforms will support different ones, but for the most part, like you're always using last. In all of the indicators that I've done, I always use last. Okay. And then we say if e.price is greater than or equal to e.ask. So we're saying the market volume came at or above the ask then. And we'll have like a little variable, current buys plus equals e.volume. Else if e.price is less than or equal to bid, e.bid. So the bid provided by the market data event args. Then current sells plus equals e.volume. Okay. Then I'm going to add doubles here up at the top for those current buys and current sells, right? And now I could calculate it on each tick, right? So let's do it like that. Let's say calculate dot on each tick. Okay. Then on bar update. So then I think I have to say if if is first tick of bar and current bar is greater than 0. I gotta think for a second if I want to do it how I want to do this. So there's kind of this weird issue wherein yeah, okay. So I think I know what I want to do. Current buys 0. Current sells equals 0. Let's just reset that every time. Okay. And then we just say value of 0 is equal to
Block buy.
Current buys minus current sells divided by current buys plus current sells. Semicolon. Finally got the evens. Well, yeah, they went well through that, in fact. Didn't they? Basically retracing the whole ADP move. Okay, how do you deal with the rollover via the data pipeline and raw data to filter? So in this instance, you don't have to. So let me pull that up. No, let's finish this. Right here, it tells you what the instrument is. So NinjaTrader will roll over for you, and you just look at what instrument it's using in the output. Isn't that great? Yeah. Okay. I think that's it. Let's see if it works. Alpha, delta percent. Okay. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. No, it's not working. Oh, it says error on. I think that I have to say here. Oh. If current bar equals 0, return. Let's just do it that way. Yeah, I see. I think that's my problem. And your outlook on tick by tick data for a scalping tool is the way to go. Well, I mean, you keep using the term tick by tick as kind of a little bit like that means something else. Okay, it doesn't like that. So if I come into a data series here and I can say, instead of it being a minute bar, I can use a tick bar and I can use a 1 tick bar. And then I will essentially get a data series that will have a new bar for every data point that comes in, right? And so some people will tell you, you need to backtest on tick data. That's what they mean. In fact, actually what they mean is like if I come in here to a strategy analyzer. Okay. So I can be using 1 minute data, but then over in here, I have a, where is it? Down in here, order fill resolution, high. And then I can specify the data series underneath of it and say, make it a 1 tick data series. See what I mean? And then that will give you like more accurate fills. So if you've read somewhere when they're talking about like you should need to backtest on tick data, that's what they mean. But what we're doing with the data pipe is we're just literally outputting every individual data event that comes into NinjaTrader and just straight output it. So with that data, you could reconstruct it any way that you wanted. You could create a 1 tick data series with it if you wanted. The data pipe is going to be a part of the speculator set indicator suite in the version that I'm going to be putting out in the next few weeks. I have one that I've kind of been using for a long time myself, but now there's enough people. You're actually like the fourth person this week to ask about it. So, oh yes, I know what's wrong. We did not specify a data series on here. We need to add a plot like this. Ba-dum. Hurry up. Well, it takes a little bit of time to test some things. And I don't want to release something to you that totally doesn't work. Da-da-da-da. Wait, does it really get up to 0.5 that often? On a 5-minute bar? Oh, maybe on a 5-minute bar. That is not what I expected to see, man. Wait, Uzi, is that correct? Is that correct? Oh, yeah. Let's turn it into histogram. Actually, let's do it in the indicator itself. Let's find one that... Hold on a second. I still have it here, don't I? Right, okay. You have to change it to be like this. Yeah. Change this to be a stroke instead. Remove. Add it back on. Now it is bars. Yes. There you go. I think that there's a setting somewhere that's like match data series width. There we go. So on the current bar, it's giving me negative 0.07. But like a better example would be at the 9:45 Eastern bar, it was giving me 0.4. So it was giving me 40% of the delta imbalance was that one bar. And I'm just surprised that in a single bar that it's that big of a imbalance that often. Yeah, 40.45. Let's change this to be times 100. Where was it? Times 100. So that it's in a percent. There you go. 41.38 is what it gives me on that one. So you might, that's probably within the margin of error, you know, with how your data, you know. Well, what you were going to do was probably even easier, but yes. But I don't know, man. I don't know if that's actually useful. At least from an algorithmic perspective, I'm not sure that that's actually useful. Super interesting though, like the way that it look. So like, look at this. See how it kind of does this thing like that. Yeah. Here, I can just send it to you. Just, it will be like, it will show up in alpha because I put it in the alpha folder, right? Man, they sure are pushing hard here. Like, I'm a little surprised. I'm just going to give you the CS file. I'm too lazy to put it into a zip file. Okay. X asks, Seth, if during a non-volatile time of the market, flattening of a position got rejected from the broker, is the broker responsible for this problem? Are they going to refund the loss? Whoa, like I've never heard of anything like that happening before. So you tried to flatten and but why did it reject it? I think it would very much depend on why it rejected it. Okay, so coming back over to here, volume profile. How big of a deal do we think that this is? This seems like a big deal to me, actually. So, okay. So, the momentum traders might be getting triggered in, and that might be why there's so much volume coming in on this. But it's could also be one of those situations where they'll kind of toy around with it. Like during our session, it will be really aggressive buying, but then eventually it will fall back below the 03. Is a possibility. I guess I basically, that kind of gives me some reason to be a little bit cautious. Like normally I get really excited when we're crossing a moving average like that. But in this particular context, it's kind of like I expect us to probably cross that moving average a bunch of times, right? But probably we are getting some volume in here because of that. Wow. Bloodbath and SMCI as auditor EY resigns, citing governance and transparency concerns. I received this error that Tradeovate disabled the flattening, and it maybe even reversed the position, and it was the first time that I faced this error. Well, that might be a Tradeovate platform error. I don't know. This is a question for your broker / Tradeovate, really, right? Well, for NinjaTrader, I guess, because they own them. But because then the other thing would be like, after that, instead of flattening, did you try just closing the position out by just raw buying and selling? And did that have problems? Because that's what I would have done. Okay, so I'm hearing some stuff about the Israeli conflict. Kind of sounds like Israel putting the kibosh on this. Talks about that there might be some deal or something. Now, going back to the data thing, maybe I need to make a video on this. Maybe I just need to make a video on this, but about data pipelines, because it kind of gets complicated. Yeah, please make a video. I mean, I don't know. I can tell you just what I would be saying, right? This is just what I already told you. But so there's a couple of things. First thing is you need a lot of space. Okay, like some of these are half a gig in just one day, so you're gonna need like one of those 20 terabyte drives or something like that. Okay. The next thing is that it kind of helps to have like an actual data pipeline thing. So what I'm doing is, if I have a process, for instance, First thing is, after I end my session at the end of the day, the data gets transferred into my pipeline. So I have some sort of scheduled job that runs on my computer. Or, I haven't done this, but this is kind of like the plan. To transfer the data across the network to my server, where I'm storing the data. Okay? And then the next step would be to start running all of these transformations and stuff. And what I can do is I can create a virtual machine, like I can create a Docker container that does all of these things, right? So it's like a Docker container. It starts up, you pass the data to that Docker container, it does the processing on it and sends it somewhere else, right? Then what you can do is you can do like Kubernetes, right? So you can set up a Kubernetes with a bunch of these little processes, and then they just pass them to each other, right? And you can use something like Airflow to coordinate that. So Airflow has the ability to say, okay, so first you transfer the data over, right? At a certain time. Okay. After 4 o'clock, right? At 4 o'clock, I transfer over. Then the next step would be at 4:15, I do the process on it, right? But what if this transfer takes more than 15 minutes for some strange reason that day? Well, then your whole pipeline breaks and it doesn't work, right? So that's what Airflow does, is Airflow is able to say, okay, when this process is done, when this process says that the file is completely there, then I run this next step. So this next step can take as long as it needs to. And you can do these sorts of things where it's like, okay, so here's the data. And then I process. Right? But then there are multiple things that come off of that process. Right? And maybe then here after that, I have this other bit that uses both of those pieces, right? I have to wait until both of these are done. So Airflow is basically a way of you created, they call it a DAG. But basically, you create a graph here of all of the dependencies. This needs the data from this and this, right? And so Airflow monitors all these things and waits until these things are done until it does this bit. And with that, you can get really complicated. Like you can have stuff going all over the place, blah, 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 like all over the place. And it gets, so more complicated than a person is able to like even keep track of and everything. And Airflow handles it for you. So it's really scalable. But like, that's kind of the way that you do a data pipeline. But you're probably going to do, because otherwise you would just do something like, okay, I have the data and then I have a little script and I just go and run the script by hand. Right. So that's kind of the path that you're starting to go down is you're building a data engineering pipeline. This is why most people never get to the actual applying machine learning part. There's two major issues that people run into. The first one is that they never get enough quality data to even do the kind of analysis that they want to do. Like getting the data and getting it in the format that you need and having it of quite enough quality. Like for instance, with the data that I'm doing, I don't have the NinjaTrader up all the time, so I don't necessarily have all of the data per se, right? But then once you have the quality data, the other issue that people have is that they don't know the types of things to run on financial data because a lot of the machine learning algorithms that are out there are kind of running on, like a standard distribution, and they're doing regression, and some of those things don't work very well for finance. So then you have to get into using the right kind of tools, which is an issue that I have not really gotten into yet. What I'm doing instead is I'm just saying, oh, well, I just want to see, okay, this market order imbalance. Is there something to this that when it's like 60% buys, it's a good time to buy? I can backtest that in NinjaTrader really easily, right? And I just need to be able to make it so that NinjaTrader can backtest on the historical data, which we've done. Is it possible to run a copy of NinjaTrader 8 with the data feed on a separate server with large data storage? Yeah, you could. You totally could. But like kind of what I'm saying is that, so like, for instance, you can go to Speedy servers. You can go to Speedy servers and they have like co-located servers that, you can run your software on and it's really fast and all that sort of stuff, right? What you would probably want is like an AWS or Azure. Actually, I think I would probably rather use Azure for this sort of data analysis sort of thing, but and they're kind of the same thing anyways. For our purposes, it wouldn't matter. And then like set up Kubernetes, right? Like if each one of those little processes that are going to run, if I can get them to their own Docker container, then I can set up a Kubernetes. And what Kubernetes does is Kubernetes manages running a bunch of those different little virtual machines. And then it can manage like redistributing the processing to where it needs to go and all of this sort of stuff, right? And that's where then you have all the different processes that are running, and you have Airflow, and Airflow handles passing all of the data to the right spots and dealing with all that sort of stuff, right? And then there's another thing, and then you get into data lakes. So a data lake is kind of like, well, I have all of these data files and they're all in kind of like different types and all of this sort of stuff. So like, how do I'm just going to save that on the disk? No. You put it in the data lake, and then the data lake allows you to add all of this information about when it was processed and what processed it and how you got that information and everything, so that, because things change over time and everything. And it's kind of like this effective way to like organize all your storage data, right? So once we get into the data lake, now we're really starting to talk about stuff that's like, I don't know if it's practical for an individual to make a data lake. Right. These are things that like you have like whole teams of people at institutions to manage, but that's kind of the path you go down. You want to become a data pipeline engineer. But one of those Docker containers could be just a Windows container that's running NinjaTrader all the time and is collecting the data. And then at a certain time of day, sends it to another one. Right? And the Kubernetes part is not actually that complicated because there's something called K3. You just install it and run on your machine and it gives you all that stuff. Does that answer the question? By the way, Uzi says a lot of price retracement with very little relative delta. I agree. This pullback seems a little bit excessive, but I felt like that the original move up was a little bit excessive. And I still kind of theorize that a lot of that volume was the really, really kind of like forward running momentum strategies that we crossed the moving average, so they're buying in. And they bought in, and then that was the end of it. So I think I was right to be like skeptical of that, like, this could come back. But there's no way that I would have thought that it'd come back that fast. It's the 200. We're crossing the 200 days. Sorry, let me show that again. So Uzi asks, which moving average? So if we come back to the day, there's the 200-day moving average that we crossed, first crossed a couple of days ago. The first time that we crossed it, there was some real volume that came into it too. And now we've touched it again. .007 says, yeah, man, like the in-depth views out of your quant head. I think autocorrect was giving him some issues. But wait, my 200-day moving average is at 111.245? Oh, is it not the 200-day? Maybe it's not the 200-day. No, it's the 200-day. Oh, I have my 200-day is a little bit brighter. How is that possible? I don't know. Maybe it is because... it's probably because of chart adjustments. So hold on a second. I have it on... for a tool like this, we need to have our stuff, market data, merge back adjusted. I changed that the other day to do a back test to see if it changed things, and it didn't. Let's just come in here and reload all historical data just for sanity check. Aha! We are not crossing the moving average. Huh. That's better, yes. Okay, my bad. So it was crossing a 200-day moving average if you do non-back adjusted, but that kind of screws things up. Yeah, so it should be 111.23. Okay. So then why did we get that? Well, we got to determine, he says, well, we got to determine whether one of us was nuts. Oh, for sure. I'm glad you said something. Okay, 007. Regarding NinjaTrader 8, is it possible to do a dual machine installation? Will the data feed behave normally in that setup? So what would you mean by a dual machine installation? Are you saying like I create a Kuber from one license? I don't think that NinjaTrader will allow that. I'm not entirely sure. I think that the way that NinjaTrader works is one machine, one license, but I don't actually know, especially not with their new system. I know that like for my indicators, that for every new machine that you put it on, I would have to authorize that new machine. Which I also need to go and activate your thing, which I'll do off stream. So I saw that get sent in last night. I'm still just trying to sort out like why that huge rush. Could be because of the Israel headlines and I just wasn't paying enough attention. 007 says, take your time, man. Next week I'll do some. Yeah. And if you just installed it, you get like 2 weeks with it anyways, right? U.S. Supreme Court allows Virginia to purge 1,600 voters from rolls amid citizenship controversy. So, now that we've kind of been messing with all that, and I'm going to close this one now, because I give it to Izzy, he can look at it. I want to look at a couple of stocks. Ah, cool. I still have it open. So apparently yesterday, DJT went like nutso. In fact, I was reading that. Oh, okay, that's interesting. I was reading that that DJT was being valued basically higher than Twitter. If you go at like what the bank was valuing Twitter at, and you look at the market cap of DJT, it was like DJT was rated higher than Twitter, which is really kind of ridiculous, to be honest. Like, they're not pulling in any money. But again, the valuation doesn't matter, the orders matter. And yeah, people are going to buy into it as a play on Donald Trump winning for sure. But my whole thing is like, even if Donald Trump wins, I'm kind of a little bit, uncertain on this company's future. Okay, then we want to do SMCI. Is it SMCI? Yeah. Supermicro. Oh, mama. That is a monster move. Wow. Wow. Let's change this back to a daily chart. How bad? Oh, wow. They've almost given up the whole thing. That's so crazy, guys. Do you remember a year ago? It seems like it was just yesterday. Well, it wasn't a year ago. It was at the beginning of the year. But do you remember when this happened? When it was like, oh, hey, guys, like, maybe it's too late to get into NVIDIA, but you could do super microcomputer. And then we had this massive rise. And oh, what do you know? They've completely come back because of all of these controversies and stuff. Wow, wow, wow. Just a guy, as he says, just a guy doing something I probably shouldn't. Yeah. He likes to add the indicators to the chart and then see if there's something to it. And I kind of wonder with that one if maybe we should change it to a Well, so there's two things that I think you can do on that one. One is that I think that you can kind of make some sort of Bollinger Band. I don't know if there's an existing indicator that does this, but I would probably want to use some of the Euler things. And if there isn't one that really exists, maybe I would ask him on how to do it to kind of give you like this upper and lower band, because it kind of seems like there's something going on there. You know? That there seemed like there was something going on there with that. But the data series itself had some craziness to it that would make it hard to just straight up use an algorithm. The DOM, a 5-minute chart with delta, yeah. I mean, the thing with the treasury is that they just trend, you know? Like, you just have to know the situations when it's going to trend. And I think that you can kind of tell contextually a lot of the time. And then you just kind of got to know the right spots to get out. That's really, really hard to do, but you don't necessarily need a ton of complicated stuff to do that. Like, you can do that with just the DOM. I guess the DOM itself is kind of complicated, but you get what I mean. With these indicators, you know, I'm not even 100% sure that I would find a real, like an algorithm that works with these, although it is showing me some promising signs. But I'm hoping that I may be able to prove some sort of a market behavior at the very least with them. So I don't need magic indicators, but sometimes it's neat to make them. Yeah, it is. It is. I think it's useful to make them. Like, it's good learning and stuff to make them as well. Yeah. Just as long as we're not leading anybody to the false impression that, like, they're going to take that and become a millionaire and everything. That's kind of... There are some regulatory concerns there, right? Like... Yeah. As he says, no, if you're going to be trade broke otherwise, yeah. It just makes me so mad what I see other YouTube channels do, because it's kind of like, well, you know, like, I want this YouTube channel to do well, but I can't compete if everybody is basically doing FTC violations, you know? So what am I supposed to do? I can just struggle along and you know, accomplish what I can accomplish in our position. But I'm not going to go and do their thing and start putting these numbers, because in my opinion, you make a YouTube video and you put a big number on that. If that number is not like typical performance for your average person, then that is deceptive advertising. And I think that's what most of these guys are doing. Is they're just like, this was one of my biggest days, I'll put the number up on it. And then, like, they're not telling you that, you know, once a year they blow their account. And then, you know what, the thing that really, really irks me on this sort of a thing is that, like, then other creator will come in and be like, oh, well, I want to learn how to day trade. So they'll go and they'll find the people that are, like, at the top of the stack on the YouTube that are basically scamming everybody. I honestly think a lot more of the retail trading audience is from the global south than we... So when you mean the global south, do you mean like South America, South Africa, those sorts of places? Or are you just talking about like the southern United States and other southern, you know, more equatorial regions in... Because I guess one thing that I've never been able to sort out is like, okay, is the retail trading audience more conservative or more liberal? Well, there does seem to be like this influx of kids. It is mostly men, so they'd probably be more conservative that way. Okay, so global north is industrialized, global south is third world or developing nations. Yes, okay. I understand what you're saying. Well, what I would say is that there are more traders from South America and Africa than I thought there would be. I think as a percentage of the audience, especially when it comes to a percentage of the audience that trades in futures, I think that it is pretty insignificant portion, but like that insignificant portion ends up being a lot more people than I thought. So there was a little bit of a liquidity hole at 17 or well, around here. I see where it was in the 2-year, but where was it in the treasury? Yeah, at 30.5. Around 30.5, there was a little bit of a liquidity hole on the way up. We did form a little bit of a liquidity hole here at 1/2. So one part of me wants to think that it's gonna settle in here. But then it's also in between the buyer and seller cost basis. So there's also, I kind of see it might come all the way back to 27.5. I'm just saying retail traders from the global south are going to be far more susceptible to Lambo fantasies. Yeah. But in terms of what we're talking about, which is like the YouTube algorithm, I don't think that they're a large enough portion of the YouTube algorithm and people that are watching trading YouTube videos to make much of a difference. I think instead what it is that the kind of like mental bias that people have is they will look for whoever they think is the most successful. This is a trap that people fall into. Is that they say, I want to be successful. If I'm going to be successful in this particular field, then what I should do is I should go and find the most successful person and just copy them. And if you are in a tribe of people, of like 200 people, and one guy is being really successful killing things and bringing in a lot of food, and you want to do that too, then like copying the way that they hunt, that makes a lot of sense, and that's a really effective way to do things. But as soon as it becomes a competitive field, that heuristic doesn't work very well. So that's why social media and like the whole kind of like a guru sphere will basically always lead you to the bad information. It's not that there's not good information out there. It's just that the good information will basically always be buried under all of the noise, and it's hard to find. And I don't know how you guys find it or how you guys found this stream, but you found it, and I'm glad that you're here. TC Ferrex says, in trading in the pits, most men were high testosterone and aggressive, so that means more conservative. There probably is a more conservative audience, and it probably is slightly higher testosterone men, simply because those men are going to be more likely to be risk takers. Yes. On the other hand, those big risk takers might not be as attracted to my stream, right? Because I'm not a huge risk taker. Probably I need to take more risks in my life. Got it from Captain Price, I believe, from the Think with Bookmap stream. I believe that's how I'm. Oh, cool. Oh yeah, garbage. Yeah. Okay, so what they're talking about, we didn't talk about this today, but we should talk about this. Donald Trump at his big Madison Square Garden rally had a comedian at his rally, and this comedian is kind of a shock jock, and one of the jokes that he told was basically that there was a garbage patch in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and it's called Puerto Rico. And so that was an offensive joke. I personally, I kind of think that it was in bad taste. Like the whole thing with being a comedian is, I think part of it is, you know, saying things that are kind of like messed up and wrong, but like everybody still thinks it's funny, and basically you get away with it, right? And I just didn't think that joke was that funny. There was just the context and all of that sort of stuff didn't seem that funny to me. Well, the liberals were pounced on this because like, honestly, this is the only bone that they've been thrown for like months. You know, everything has gone against them every step of the way. Kamala Harris has screwed things up every step of the way. This is like the first break that they've had in a while, something that they can pounce on to try and hurt the Trump campaign. You know, is it that big of a deal? Like, because it was a comedian and everything, really you have to get down into, well, Donald Trump maybe shouldn't have called him, but like, it's Donald Trump. I don't know if anybody really cares. If Donald Trump himself had said that, then that would be a huge deal, right? But it's just the comedian. Yeah, I mean, the actual effect on things, probably not a huge deal, right? Well, so then Democrats are trying to pounce on Donald Trump for what they have anyways. And Joe Biden basically says, oh, the only garbage that I see around here are Trump's supporters. So then Joe Biden basically called all of Trump's supporters garbage. Which in my opinion is just as bad, if not worse, than when Hillary Clinton called Trump's supporters deplorable. So it kind of seems to me that the Democrats just took what was like probably their biggest win going into the close of this election and turned it into a huge loser. like I really think if you're in Pennsylvania, you're a working class person, you voted Democrat, but you've kind of been sitting on the fence because you don't like the way that things have been going, and you don't really feel like the Democrat Party really represents your interests in particular, and you kind of suspect that the Democrat Party actually secretly hates you, right? And then you hear Joe Biden say, well, anybody that votes for Trump is garbage. That's kind of like the thing that would make, would be the difference between me voting Democrat and staying home, or me staying home and voting for Trump. You know what I mean? So I think that was like a huge L for the Democrats campaign there. And, it kind of makes me wonder again. I think that one was like, Joe Biden genuinely does kind of feel like that and says that sort of stuff. Like, again, it's weird because the only time that I ever see Joe Biden animated is when he's attacking Donald Trump and his supporters, right? But then it also comes back to this thing that's like, it seems like every time that Kamala. You know what? If Kamala wins, the thing that I will hate the most is all of these high and mighty wieners correcting everybody about how to say her name all the time. That'll be the worst part of a Kamala Harris presidency. Anyways, it seems like whenever Kamala gets a little bit of breathing room, Joe Biden comes out and does something and slams them back down. What's with that? It just can't. Average Democrat has no idea what never being called the Nazis and constantly being told others are the disease does to them, the long-term psychological impact of that is too often unnoticed? Maybe. I mean, I don't feel like that whole conversation has had some sort of lasting psychological impact on me. Perhaps if somebody was getting really aggressive and violent and in my face and saying it to me, then maybe it would have a difference. Oh, the impact that it has on them. Oh, yes. I think you're right. I think you're right. Imagine what you'll vote for if you're that terrified. I mean, it's kind of ironic because the thing is that, saying that the Republicans are Nazis is a relatively new thing, but the left has always used this tactic. Like it has kind of been a key hallmark of the globalist world order to kind of call the other side, oh, well, if you elect the other side, they're gonna do all these mean bad things, right? And they did say it with Bush, but it wasn't like a mainstream thing. Like I remember people saying it with Bush, but me just thinking, yeah, but that's just those crazy people on the forums that are like way too so far left that they're just completely deranged, right? It wasn't like I'd see it on TV, It wasn't like I'd see it on TV, but they always presented the Republican in that kind of light. They didn't use the word, but they always painted them in that light, right? Uzi says, yeah, it's a TV narrative now, so you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like the difference now is just that they're outright calling people Nazis, right? And it just kind of seems ironic to me that it's like it's blowing up in their face now. Because it's not really influencing people, but what it is doing is it's leading their own people to just do absolutely stupid things. And so because of that, it's blowing up in their face. Like the reality is that the fascist regimes of the World War II are a unique thing in history. Like there's a lot of similarities in different ideologies and different regimes and things like this, but like fascist kind of means a specific set of ideologies that it was really actually quite narrow and does not resemble anything else. What you could really say is the right. It's a right-wing ideology. It's a far-right ideology. And I think that historically speaking, there is a tendency for extreme right-wing ideologies to kind of devolve into genocide and or dictatorship. That is true. Far left-wing ideologies also tend to lead to dictatorships, but they tend to lead to genocide by class rather than by ethnicity. So I just think that trying to compare everybody to Nazis is just like really unfair. Because like to people, like what was like the key defining feature of them is, I think that people have different opinions of that. And to most Americans, when they call somebody a Nazi, really what they mean is that person wants to take away all of their freedoms, right? And that is definitely not what the conservatives are trying to do. It must have been hard for Biden to cope. He did get robbed by a Canadian. Oh! Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that bit, man. Oh, jeez. It's, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing that had not become a bigger part of the campaign. I remember us talking about it, but that was like one day and then like everybody dropped it. But like, Kamala Harris was raised in the most formative parts of her life were in Quebec. Yes. I mean, she is an American citizen and everything. And I think that, I don't think, is there even people out there kind of questioning her eligibility? I hadn't really seen that out there. I'm sure that there's some crazy person out there that does, but she was born in the United States. She lived there for a few years. She's a legit U.S. citizen and is completely eligible to be president. But I definitely can see where a lot of people would say, hey, she doesn't really understand us because she grew up in Quebec during her formative years. And, so not only was she not in the United States, but she was in Quebec, which is very, very different from the rest of Canada, so... Maybe in the Candace Owens sphere, that chick's gone insane. Dude, Uzi, I'm so glad that you see that too. Like, there are some things about Candace Owens that I've liked in the past. She seems to be good at what she does, but it also seems to me that she's like just completely jumped the shark a long, long time ago and completely fallen down the path of like, in particular, anti-Semitism. She's a good chameleon. Maybe. Uzi says she's a good chameleon. I got to get better at that. I feel like that anybody that's watching the stream that's not reading the chat will have a hard time telling between when I'm reading somebody's comment and when I'm making a statement. Uzi says that's how she went from a leftist making a doxing site to waking up one day into a conservative powerhouse. So let me ask you this. So I was talking about this with my wife the other day and somebody else, which is Pearl. Are you guys familiar with just Pearly things? Oh man. So this woman on, I think she became famous on YouTube initially. And she is basically like the anti-women woman. Right? Like she says that all women, the modern women are terrible wives and women are not smart. And she thinks that women shouldn't vote. Like she outright openly advocates that women shouldn't be able to vote. And I think I've brought this up a couple of times before because I just very vehemently disagree with her, this idea that like women shouldn't vote. If we have an issue with a demographic in our society, making it a political decision, a voting decision, systemically making a voting decision that's bad for the society, the fix for that is not to take away their right to vote. The fix for that is to educate that class about, things that might be distorting their views and educating them, right? Like at men, we know that men kind of have this tendency to towards violence, and so you have to consider that when you're voting. And like, this is something that anytime politics comes up as you're growing up and everything, that they kind of teach you. And we don't have those same kind of social norms for women yet, but we need to start developing them, because I think that both men and women have certain tendencies that if you let them get out of control could be really bad for society, right? Pearl is the living embodiment of a cultural psyop. Oh, you think so? You think she's a psyop? Like, yeah, I'm catching myself again. Uzi says Pearl is the living embodiment of a cultural psyop. So anyways, she popped up on my feed and it was an interesting conversation because she was talking about this woman that was like, oh, I want to leave my husband, but I'm afraid of hurting him and this and that. And my wife and I were talking about it, and I'm like, well, that right there tells you that probably she should stay, right? Like, probably she doesn't have a very good reason to be leaving, because there's not like abuse or anything going on, at least. We Mormons have a kind of a higher, really, we mostly say that there has to be like real abuse going on to justify a divorce, but I don't completely agree with that. But I digress. But we kind of started going because she didn't really know a whole lot about her. And the question was, how genuine is it? Like, I kind of feel like that Pearly Things has gone more and more far right radical as time has gone on? Is it because she's an influencer and the more extreme she gets, the more attention she gets, and so that reinforces it, and that kind of distorts her ideology in her mind and pushes her far right? Or is it that she just straight up wants to be famous and make the money, and so she plays it up, and she intentionally takes extreme positions intentionally because she knows that it will get her more publicity, and not necessarily because she actually believes them? So Uzi's saying that Pearl is a cultural psyop. I guess you're kind of suggesting that she she is not what she sells herself as? So what is about her is disingenuous? Did I use the right word there? I don't think I'm using the right word there. DC Verax says there's a bunch of interviews where women say that they will only vote for Harris because of abortion, ... Okay, so let me tell you what, though, Verax. I saw another bit of statistics yesterday, and they showed that the gender gap difference between this election and the last election is not actually coming from women. And they are correct. Women are voting for Joe Biden, or rather supporting Joe Biden are supporting Kamala Harris in about the same numbers that they did for Joe Biden. So I guess, abortion is a thing, and that was a thing last election too, and maybe to some extent in 2016, but not nearly as strongly. But what is different about this election is that men are by and large going Trump, like big time. Before it was kind of like even, and now they're really moving over. And when you look at the young men in particular, they're really, really going Trump in very, very large numbers. So that's kind of interesting. So because the thing that you see online is women are only voting for so that they can abort their babies, and it's more complicated than that. Okay, Uzi says, I'm saying she is not what she sells herself as. Like, did the internet influencer sphere make people forget actors are a thing, like people who pretend? What is it about digital video on the internet that makes people believe everything is genuine? Well, okay, my approach to this is I generally will take people at their word that they believe what they're saying, unless I have some sort of information that suggests that they do not. So with Candace Owens, we kind of do have that her shift between being a far left radical and a far right radical was extremely quick, kind of made no sense. And so I think that there's a really good argument there to be made. We couldn't prove it, but I think that there's a pretty good argument to be made there that she shifted to being a right wing because she wasn't having success with the left. Okay. Uzi says if Pearl was that in real life, she'd have to invest so much in makeup to hide the black eyes she'd have from being belted around. People on the internet talk and act in a way that would undeniably get themselves beat on the regular. So one of the things that Pearl talks about a lot is she's like, I've talked to so many different people and interviewed so many different people, and I've found all of these things. Like, women will leave and get divorced for no reason, yada, 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 yada. And like, I'm sitting there like, I think that probably has a lot to do with who you're talking to. I talked to a lot of single divorced people during my single divorced time, and everybody had a horror story. I tell you what. I only knew a few women that seemed like that they didn't really have a good reason for leaving. Most of them had a very interesting story to tell. So, but I just haven't seen anything, and that's the thing is like, okay, like she would, I think it's probably the case that she would not have as extreme of views as she has if it was not for her being an influencer. But that doesn't answer the question of whether she actually believes it or not. Is it that the extremism leads you to develop more, is it that being an influencer leads you to develop more extreme views? Or is it that she adopts extreme views to become a more popular influencer? Or rather, is the development of more extreme views a conscious thing by the influencer? I don't know how to prove which way it is. And my opinion was that with Pearl, that I think that being an influencer has basically deranged her. Like, it has distorted her opinion on life, because the information that she's getting and the feedback that she's getting is so distorted by basically being an influencer creates this distortion bubble around you that influences all of the information that comes to you. And she's not, I think that to overcome that sort of a problem is really hard, and you kind of have to have been prepared before you became famous, And I don't think that she had that. And so she's not really well equipped to be able to deal with that distortion. That's what I think about Pearl. But with Candace Owens, I kind of do think that she was like, well, I'm not really getting a whole lot of what I want on the left, so I'm going to go and become a right-wing crazy now. And then the reason I kind of felt like, aside from, her shift was a little bit weird, but it's also in the things that she chooses to pick up. It's almost always in line with what is the craziest thing that she's seeing on Patriots Thought Win, and which includes the anti-Semitism. Kamala Harris says, I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. Yeah, that's damage control. Paul says, hasn't she said herself like some insanely hypocritical things based on that? Sorry, you have to be a little more specific. I'm not sure what you mean. Or I'm not familiar. I guess part of the problem is that I don't follow any of those influencers close enough to know the history of all the things that they say and everything, right? Like you guys, you know, if there was ever a controversial, all of a sudden I became famous for saying something controversial, and you guys, because you're here every day and you hear every word that you say, and you would be able to go through the history of Seth's development and ideology and all of these sorts of things and be able to tell me where I went wrong and all of that sort of stuff, right? But most of these people that we're talking about, you know, I will maybe occasionally see a video from them once a week or something like that on TikTok. Oh, hasn't Kamala Harris herself said some insanely hypocritical things, basically about people based on who they vote for? Yeah, I think you could argue that, because one of the ones was all of this stuff about saying that, like, if you're a woman that you have to vote for Kamala Harris, right? That there's something wrong with you if you're a woman if you don't vote for Kamala Harris. I think that Kamala Harris has said something to that effect before. I don't know. Like the thing is that her. I mean, for the purposes of our analysis, I don't know if Kamala Harris coming out and saying that really solves the problem for them. I kind of think that the damage has been done and that there's not a whole lot. I mean, maybe that will stem the bleeding, but I bet you, like, here's the thing. She'll come out and say that, and then next thing that will happen is some other Democrat will say something really stupid again, right? And people will go and dig up something that Kamala Harris said and put all these, like, this, like, the narrative is already there. You kind of can't, you know, so for its impact on the election, it's, you know, because I think you want to be able to say, oh, well, the candidate distances themselves from it, and so it won't hurt them now. But no, it's already a thing. Okay, so that is the bell. It is time for me to get going. I tell you what, well, I don't know about Thursday, but Friday is certainly going to be an interesting day because you have the non-farms and then probably people do positioning for the weekend and the election, and then you get the election. I'm kind of tempted to like stream the election, but like last time we didn't really know what happened, so this time I'm kind of thinking like, let's not mess with it. I want to sit on the couch and watch with my family. But we'll be on Discord, right? So, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Stay excellent.